Today, as I said, Susan Lee has released her plan to save the Liberal Party. It includes smaller taxes, better schools and national security. Joining me now to discuss this and more, political contributor Chris Uhlmann. I welcome the focus, Chris, on national security. Clearly that was left way too late in the campaign, but with regards to better schools, she's got that there as a foundation piece. I make the point the Commonwealth doesn't run a single school, it doesn't hire a single principal or a teacher. So I presume this means she's willing to get into the culture fight that none of the rest of the Liberals have been to date. Good, if that's the case. Smaller taxes, she says. Well, I don't just want smaller taxes as a Liberal. I want lower taxes, not just smaller in number. I want lower taxes. But I think the real glaring omission here was energy. I mean, you often say energy is the economy. The economy is energy. How that is missing from her list staggers me.
Yeah, Peter, and a lot of people are saying it now, but few people seem to understand it, because when we talk about net zero, which is the policy that they're fighting over at the moment, that's just not the electricity sector, right? The electricity sector is the easy part. That's 20% of the equation. The other 80% is how do we make concrete, steel, plastic and ammonia. That's 80% of all of our energy. It's essentially buried in everything around us. Fossil fuel is part of the modern world in which we live, and trying to get to net zero means basically trying to invent an enormous number of processes which are yet to be done at an industrial scale. So this is a massive project. Most of the world is not doing this. So the United States is not now doing this, and Russia's not doing it, and China's not doing it, and India's not doing it. That's 60% of the world's emission. So in the end, this thing will fall over all by itself. Physics will make sure that's the case. But unfortunately for the coalition along the way, they're going to tear themselves apart on this, on a policy position, because clearly the Nationals, or the large part of the Nationals, have a different view to the Liberal Party. I assume now they'll spend the next 3 years fighting over this, over a policy position which should be reasonably easy, because from a Liberal point of view, what will be required to try, without succeeding, to hit net zero will be permanent COVID-level intervention in your lifestyle. We've only just begun to see the tip of this iceberg.
Yeah, I will make the point too. Net zero isn't just, as we've discussed, energy, and energy isn't just electricity, it's all those other things you talk about. But net zero is also agriculture, it's transport. I mean, if we go down this path, and yes, you're right, we'll get to 2050, the world will not be at net zero. Australia will not be at net zero. But along that way, we'll have sent farmers off the land. We will have radically changed our national herd for meat livestock. We will have radically changed the way we move around this country. We will have changed the dynamic of the cars and the choices people have. All of that will go because we'll have all the policies in place. We'll be setting ourselves over a cliff. We will not get to where we want to be, and we'll damage ourselves and our economy in a way I think that we will not be able to repair, though, Chris, in that same time frame. That's why you've got to call it out now and bring it to an end.
And the coalition's done a terribly bad job at trying to explain this to people, and it shouldn't necessarily be that difficult, and they can point to international examples, and I'll give you the latest one, which is Mark Carney, the very liberal, small L liberal, leaning Prime Minister of Canada, has said that he wants Canada to be an energy superpower, not a green energy superpower, but an energy superpower. And he's talking about oil and gas exploration and pipelines as the first things off his lips when he was talking about that. So not even Canada now is signed up to net zero.
And if you look down in Victoria, and this is the counter-argument to the sense we're seeing in Canada, even from the left-leaning Carney, you've got the state there wanting to move to 95% renewable power by 2035. And this was put out in some detail on the weekend ahead of the budget tomorrow night. They want renewable energy zones covering about 7% of the state's land, 5.2 million solar panels, 1,000 onshore wind turbines, countless of them offshore as well, 4 new transmission projects. Their own documents say, and I quote, wind and solar generation are inherently variable. It's not uncommon to experience periods when there's little wind and sunshine. So if they know all of that, Chris, why are they persisting with the madness?
Well, one can only wonder, and they only have to look back to last year in April, where across April and May, over a period of about 3 or 4 weeks, there were long periods of time when there was no solar power and there was essentially no wind. And when that happens, you need 100% backup of all of that stuff. You simply cannot do that with batteries. So you need some sort of firm, dispatchable source of energy to keep the lights on. Now that's got to be gas, but of course the same people in Victoria who want this ridiculous system, I note now they say that they're going to have more transmission lines, that's going to fix it. Well, guess what? The whole of Victoria was covered in that system last year. The whole of Victoria was down, so was South Australia and so was New South Wales. So where do they imagine the energy will come from? This is deliberate self-harm by the Victorian government, and if that's what the Victorian people and that's what the Australian people want, then we will have a real-world demonstration of what can go catastrophically wrong sometime in the near future.
This is where, too, the Victorian Liberal Party, who'll face an election in November next year, can't hide and pretend that these issues are not on the agenda at a state level, because they will be absolutely germane to the election. They can't say it's just an issue for debate in Canberra. They're actually going to have to get off the fence where they've sat for too long with barbed wire, get off the fence and put some of this to the electorate before people vote next year.